Okay, May 19th,
spoke to
2020.
a little bit earlier. You mentioned there's different streams for both employees and individuals of the public to bring forward concerns if they feel a business is not following regulations. Can you explain those different streams for me? And also, what penalties will there be for businesses that put the public's health at risk by not following along those regulations?
Regulations.
So once again, these are not regulations. What they are.
Okay, she says this is the third time around with different newscasters asking the question, right? In regards to regulations that dictate how a business should reopen and treat its customers. And they're asking the public to make a plan based on the guidelines that they're providing through their CDD website for British Columbia, Canada, right? I guess there's, through Work BC, there's basic guidelines that they're putting together, kind of like the BC Liberals, everything on the fucking fly here, right? Okay, so they're putting it together, and they give them basic guidelines for basic businesses that are just starting up. Obviously, a lot of businesses are not allowed. Bars are not allowed to open. You know, there's no concerts and just a lot of stuff, right? Salons, they're iffing and humming about. And so anyway, she's trying to say these are not regulations. And she beats around the bush prior to what we're here now, right? And says it's an order. I don't know where this order is coming from, people, that gives this woman the authority to so-called make an order without having to vote in legislation that brings in regulation, okay? Because under normal circumstances, when you start bringing in regulations, which this is what it is, it's done through debate, right? That's one thing, between the two parties, right, that are in the House. And, you know, it takes a while. Here, she's saying it's an order, but she's not being specific because she tries to put it upon everybody else to do their part so that it becomes one big happy family, even though everybody's under an order. Like I said before, is this woman like a military high official? Like, is she working in the military? Are we under a state of emergency and nobody's told us about it yet, people? Is this what this lockdown is about, being under a state of emergency? And she's our general who gives the orders, because the Minister of Health doesn't want to take responsibility. He says it's her department who makes the rules. And now that the people are going to her and saying, look, we can't see our loved ones, we're not being allowed in to see them as they die, and we already know what kind of fiascos we're getting with funerals in terms of, you know, they don't want you carrying a casket, they don't want you throwing dirt, you're only allowed 10 people, you know, it takes a month just to bury a body, it takes 19 days just to be able to identify a body, right? And she's playing like complete lip service to this, people, by, oh, well, just be kind. You know, we're going to get through it together, but don't email me with your concerns about your loved one, because I can't do anything about that. It's the particular health authorities that are in charge of that problem, even though the minute she walks away, you get the Minister of Health coming in, right? What's his name? Dix, right? Adrian Dix, right? He comes in and he's saying, well, it's not so much me who makes those decisions, it's what she feels that needs to be done when it comes to removing restrictions, adding on restrictions, bringing in orders. So She's answering the question and she beats around the bush. That's what I'm trying to say.
Is guidance documents and the requirement, with the exception of the requirement to have a COVID-19 plan. So the plan is something that you must have, and it must...
So the plan is something that you must have, even though it's not regulated, and that's because she likes to throw the word around. It's been ordered.
Be available to the public. But then the guidance needs to be adapted to your unique situation of your business, your physical layout, the population you serve, the employees that you have. And you need to make accommodation for the concerns that your employees may have. As we know, this has been something working together between public health and WorkSafe BC, and WorkSafe BC has been taking the lead on the interaction with the different sectors of industry to make sure that the guidance reflects the needs and the concerns in that industry. So if you are an employee and you have concerns about your workplace environment, as in any other environment, WorkSafe BC is the place to go to get the advice or the to have the complaints if you have complaints. You can also, of course, go through your unions if you are unionized. But we always, in public health, play a role in the protection of the health and of the public. So it's the environmental health officers on our teams who do things like restaurant inspections, which are things that we do all the time to ensure that food is safe. We do inspections of food processing plants, of all kinds of water systems, etc. So they are the experts on making sure that people have the advice.
I just want you to hear this without me interrupting.
That keep,
she didn't use the word order.
Safe. So if you have concerns about safety in a business, whether it's a nail salon or a restaurant, then you can complain to your local public health, and they will do an inspection
and go harass your boss.
And there's various different levels of inspection. But again, our approach and our approach on regular times is that we take an educational approach. Our first line of action is not to find people or shut them down. It's to ensure that they are taking the necessary actions that we need to keep people safe. Having said that, there are abilities for environmental health officers to shut down a business if they feel that there are health hazards that put the public at risk. And there's protocols that WorkSafe BC can as well, and they have provision to fine people if needed. But our first approach is...
What was that? Go find people if need be.
Shut them down. It's to ensure that they are taking the necessary actions that we need to keep people safe. Having said that, there are abilities for environmental health officers to shut down a business if they feel that there are health hazards that put the public at risk. And there's protocols that WorkSafe BC can as well, and they have provision to fine people if needed. But our first approach is to help people through this. It's
Are you listening to this?
Like I've said, it's not something we've done before, so we need to make sure that everybody is being thoughtful about it. And that
this is something we haven't done before, but we need to make sure that everybody is thoughtful of it, as they will ensure that they'll go find somebody if they need to for not having maybe enough plexiglass in their environment, or the chairs are too close, or who knows. This is like
that they're enacting the plans that they've made and that they're working. So that's the approach we'll be taking.
Next question is from Binder Sajjan, CTV.
Hi there. I'm just wondering if you might be able to provide a bit more detail about the two deaths in Fraser Health. Wondering if they're connected to the Langley Lodge. And if you might have an update on the total number of cases and deaths at that facility. There are families who are saying that they are receiving a lack of communication, and just wondering if you might be able to shed some light on that.
Yeah, they're being really mean.
Unfortunately, there has been, as we know, an ongoing outbreak at the Langley Lodge, and it's been a very challenging one for a variety of reasons. My understanding is that at least one of the deaths was indeed from that place. Let me just find it here. So the number of cases that we have from Langley Lodge as of today were 43 residents who have been affected and 7 staff members, including 8 deaths at that facility. So
because they let everybody
that
sit in a
reflects
diaper, people,
transmission within the facility,
okay.
And I know that Fraser Health
They
has
don't
been
take
working
the
very
old
hard with the
folks
facility
to
to
the
try and make sure that all of the provisions that they need are put in place. But
That's how
it has been
being
proven
spread around,
to be a very
changing
challenging one.
diapers
And sadly,
like
that's
that.
reflected in the number of the seniors and elders in that facility who have died.
It's easier for the workers to keep the patients in diapers for whatever freaking reason. You think
Henry,
it wouldn't be, but
I have another outbreak that I wanted to ask you about, which is the
so anyway.
the Lions.
I need to go back into this video. I'll just provide the link, people, and if you really want to go hear it for yourself, because this is the thing, people aren't hearing it, they're not cluing in. How the hell can you give an order? This is an order, okay? In other words, if you don't do it, somebody files a complaint, we're coming after you, and we're going to find you. We have ways to find you. You heard her say that. That's the first thing, right? They don't want to admit that it's regulation because they haven't taken it to the House and have a debate on it yet, people. There is no legislative act that's written around this kind of behavior other than, I would think, what is in their playbook. And even then, they're doing the story as they go through a lot of the process because they don't even know what the fuck they're doing. Although they have a larger agenda to manufacture poverty, create themselves an organ bank that they can draw upon through that targeting, be ever which way it is, people. There's many ways to target vulnerable families and vulnerable individuals, and they've just stepped up their game in terms of allowing the public union sector, where the majority of tax dollars already goes into, have more tax dollars now to target even more people. And they're not doing it through regulation. They're doing it specifically through an order that's being given by her, because that's who the Minister of Health says, if you got issues with the decisions that are being made, it's based on what this woman feels, and then it trickles into her office as they build in their guidelines in partnership with workmen's comp, all union, everything's union, right? And then between those entities, you know, pit community against community. They went on about how downtown, some reporter went on about how in downtown, I guess the Chinese are suffering more racism. Well, let me tell you something, people. Go downtown and you're going to find 60% or more of Chinese. Just like you come out to Surrey, you're going to find 50%, 55%, pushing up 60% of Punjabis out here. Okay, that's the way it rolls. In Vancouver, it's namely Chinese. So I don't know how the Chinese are feeling like they're being picked on when you come into my neighborhood and it's the Chinese that are building the high-rises and complexes like this over here, which completely erodes the quality of life as innocent families are being gang-stalked by cities, you know, city and bylaw officers. This is happening more than just in Surrey. And she's telling everybody to be kind, right? And we'll get through this together like one big happy family. But the order is, you can't do this, 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 and this unless you come to our website, right, in partnership with, find out what the guidelines are. You better implement those guidelines because we're coming to inspect soon enough. Ha ha ha, we did it before. Well, we're coming back and we're doing it again. No new news there. Although before they didn't have to have $4,000 worth of plexiglass just to accommodate their complaining and whiny employees as the customers are coming in and maybe just, don't want to leave their fucking name so that her partner in, I don't want to say crime, but the health minister, are now going to be going after those same very fucking people with their contact tracing and let me test you. Like, this is madness. This is complete madness. Over 2 million. It's not just 1 million people in this province who have been financially, economically ruined, but there are family, children, and, parents, and those kind of people all connected to those breadwinners within those households who now just fall in line with becoming a statistic to a ready-made organ bank that is being facilitated through the public union sector and tax dollars to pick one off here, pick one off there, pick one off here without the legislation or the fact checks in terms of, well, gee, I kind of disagree with what you're saying. I'd like to get a second independent autopsy to verify what you are telling me. But they've made sure you can't even do that. There are 5.2 million people in this province and not one person in this province can go outside the fucking box to get an independent autopsy on their loved one as they're being denied access to those loved ones and not being a witness to their deaths and to how they're being treated before they die. Never to see what their bodies look like after the fact because most people are too afraid to look at a dead body, never mind wait like 19 days like me to look at my daughter's dead body. 5.2 million people and not one person can go out there and get a second independent autopsy on their loved one to verify what these people are saying. When so much what they say is ambiguous. Right? And very, very, very harmful to millions of lives. And we need to ask ourselves, why? How is it that these big buildings can go up? You heard it, people. Okay? All across the freaking province. But the people that were born in this country are dying off as they're being preyed upon one by the very people who say they represent us and then tell us it's an order. It's an order, but can't produce the regulation or the legislation to verify that there's an order in there. Unless, of course, we're under a state of an emergency and this is our new general who says, just be kind. And I won't lie to you. Well, I really do try to avoid watching this stuff. There's so much I want to say. Right? I like and these news media, they play into it, people. They ask the questions, but they let it fucking slide. They don't push the envelope. They don't push no buttons. They just let the lip service flow free so that people get it in their head. Oh, it's an order. Well, who cares if it's not a regulation? It's an order. Whew. I'm ordered to complain if my boss doesn't have enough plexiglass and all the right things to protect me so that I can go to work. So now the boss becomes the criminal. right? So what? The government empowered the employee to rat out the boss for not providing safety measures? And now the boss is running and hiding as workman compensation board, and those union guys are chasing him down because it's an order. Nowhere, though, can you find it written in legislation. Nowhere can you find it written in rules and regulations that's connected to that legislation. You have the legislation, then you get the rules and the regulations, and the two go together. And then every now and then, they'll throw in a freaking mandate. So you might have 3 or 4 different fucking legislations, regulations, and all this other crap just to address what we're addressing with. But as soon as you say order, and here's the point of this video, as soon as you say it's an order, it bypasses the legislation, it bypasses the rules and the regulations, it bypasses the mandates, right? It bypasses it all, people, so that the government doesn't have to be held accountable, and they put the burden onto the public, including the employers who are already sticking out their necks, right? Much farther than they ever should. And just because we had health inspections in restaurants before doesn't make it okay to start treating people like shit now, just because these people have a political agenda to create themselves an organ bank. Okay? They're in bed with freaking China. They have been in bed with China for a long time. China is their teacher. They want to talk about teacher? Yeah, no. China, those rich Chinamen, those rich gangster guys, they've been teaching the BC Liberal government, and now it looks like the NDP government, how to be real fucking gangsters, okay? Because all these buildings up here are being built by people from China. I know people. I know this for a fact because I met the dudes when they were out there, when they were ripping down the walnut trees. I seen who was going down that. It wasn't Punjabis, it was Chinese. Because the government's going to be bringing in the rich immigrants through the back door, people. That's what they're doing. They're creating the organ bank as they bring in the rich immigrants in through the back door to fill up all these fucking buildings, and then they fucking gonna be gang stalking the poorest of the poor, the ones just hanging on a short thread, you know, the ones that are trying to hang on, but slowly but surely their lives are falling apart at the seams as they continue to pay their taxes when they go to the liquor store, just so they can go home and call their mental health services so that the health team can go in there, start testing everybody, even though there are no regulations, there is no legislation, it's just an order.